Welcome to Stitch Crazy. I'm going to show you how to do a recycled blue jean quilt. On the supplies that are needed, we need lots of blue jeans with different color variation. And the reason for that is so that your quilt is kind of light and dark and light and dark. And then on the self-healing board that we need, the self-healing board is when you're using your rotary cutter and you're cutting into your board, it heals itself so that you're not going to have all these gouges on your board. It'll heal itself. With the rulers, there's many different types. We have a couple different brands, and it's kind of nice to use the same brand when you're cutting out your projects because they can vary in size as far as your seam allowance. The rotary cutter, it's very important that when you're using the rotary cutter that you have it closed. When you press this down and the blade is exposed, this is like a razor blade. So it's very important that you don't leave it open, and that's why they make them nowadays more safety so that the blades aren't showing, because this is a razor blade. So be careful with that. We need our sewing machine. We need a needle for the sewing machine, which should be a 14 or a 16, and then your thread. I usually use white with my blue jeans so that when we're top stitching, we don't have to continually change our thread. And then also on your quilt, the white thread will accent so you can kind of see the design. And then of course we'll need the scissors, and it needs to be heavy duty scissors because we're cutting out jean material. It's a lot easier on your hands if you're using heavy duty scissors. And then of course the backing for the quilt. First we're going to decide what we want to make. And we're going to either make a quilt or a pillow. You can make a dog bed, a recliner throw. We'll have to decide on the size, how wide and how long. So we're going to take these jeans and we're going to cut them apart. And first we're going to cut the seams. We're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut our seams apart. And we're going to cut the ends off here. Probably wouldn't hurt to have a wastebasket too, to throw your garbage in. And we're going to cut this apart. So what we're going to do is get rid of all the seams. Okay? So once we've cut this apart, we're going to end up with a piece like this that has no seams. Okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut these into strips. Okay? What I have found for this quilt, I am going to do 6.5 inch wide strips, and you can make them different lengths. So here I'm going to take this piece of fabric and I'm going to find where I can make a nice 6.5 inch strip. So I'm going to lay my ruler out on the board, and then I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to cut the width. So I'll get rid of these extra little pieces here, but don't throw these away because you can save these for another size if you choose to. Okay, so I have that one side sewn or cut. I will turn my piece of blue jeans on my board here, and I will line up my ruler to the 6.5 inch and line that up with the edge, and take my rotary cutter and then I'm going to cut along the other side of the board. And then I'm going to cut the end here too. So then we've cut that strip out, and you're going to have a strip like this. So now I am going to cut this blue jeans out. And I think on this one, I've already shown you how to cut the strips, but we're gonna cut out the pocket on the back. And we can make, I'm going to cut this, and I'm gonna cut all the way up. And then because I wanna use it onto my quilt, I wanna try to have as much seam allowance as possible, so I'm gonna cut right up to the edge there. And then I'm gonna cut down the seam again. Get rid of that. So now I'm going to cut below, I am going to cut below this pocket so that I need at least the amount for the seam allowance. Okay, there we have a pocket that we can use in our quilt to add decoration to the quilt itself. There's many things that you can use for decoration. If you want to use rickrack and lace, you can use the pockets. You can even use the jeans that have a little rip in it, and it'll give character to your quilt. Also, when you're doing the strips, I was showing you the 6.5 inch wide. You can take this material, and we can make them any width you want. You can make them 1.5 to 8.5. If you do the 8.5, your quilt is going to go much faster. So I'm going to cut this down, and I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to flip this material around. You can buy tools that the boards will just rotate for you if you want to. On this particular one, I don't. Okay, on the first ones that I cut 6.5 inches. On this one, I'm going to cut a 3-inch strip. And when I do that, excuse me, this is going to be a 3-inch wide strip. So then it'll be narrow than the other one. So when you're done, you can look at this quilt here. You're going to have your wide strip, and then you're going to have your narrow strip. A wider strip, and then this one's squares. So you can use rectangles and squares in the same quilt. And here you can see where I've top stitched to make the decoration. And then this also, not only for decoration, it will hold your seam down in the back, so it'll make it lay flat. When you're done cutting, you will have different strips in a pile that have different color variations. Okay, our next step is going to be sewing these all together.
Sign up for HD or DVR from Valley this month and receive 2 months free and free installation. Call us today at 437-2615. You don't want to miss out on this offer.
Once we get all of our strips cut, which here's a pile of different color strips, and then we're going to sew these 2 strips together. So then I'm taking these 2 because they make a color variation. I'll put the right sides together, and I'm going to go to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch seam. You can make it smaller if you want. A 1/4 inch is okay too. I prefer a 1/2 inch because that way the seams won't pull out as fast. Okay, so I'm going to take these and sew these 2 pieces together. And I'll sew this 1/2 inch. Once we get to the end here, I will take and... So now we have these 2 pieces together. I am going to take these seams and I am going to kind of flatten them with my fingers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch from this middle line to make a decorative stitch. So I'll do that on both sides of that line. I'll take and line up my sewing machine with that line. My machine is set up for a 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to sew along that line. And now I'm at the end of the row. I'm going to turn it, and then I'm going to bring that over, and I'm going to line that presser foot up with the seam again, and then I'm just going to sew that 1/4 inch all the way down this line. Okay, now that that's complete, I'm going to rip that thread. Okay, now here's my finished product. I have the seam, and then I have a sewing and a sewing line. You'll have that on all of these rows that you do. Once you've gotten the row to the length that you want, I'm going to be putting these 2 rows together. I'm going to show you here. I have this row here and my second row. And what I am trying to do with these rectangle, I'm trying to make my second row offset the first row so that the seams don't match. So then when you're sewing, then you won't have that bulk all in one spot. So I'll have like my seam is here, my seam is over here, my seam is here, here, here. And that way when you sew it, it'd be much easier to sew. So then you take these 2 rows and you take and line them up, and then you just sew that 1/2 inch all the way down.
Valley's Mobile Command Center is coming to a town near you. Stop in at Valley's Mobile Command Center to learn more about our services, see and test some of our products, ask questions, or just to visit with us. Make sure to check your newsletter for specific dates and times when we will be rolling into your town.
Valley Telecommunications, the home team advantage.
I'm going to take to my sewing machine, and I'm going to do the 1/2 inch, just like I did on the last row, and we'll sew it all the way down the row. And I just make sure my 2 pieces are even. Okay, now that we have that row finished, then we are going to open up our 2 rows. And then you will see where the seams don't match. And then once again, we're going to take and press these apart, and then we will top stitch down one side and down the other side.
Valley Telecommunications is pleased to announce that our Technology Solutions Center is fully stocked and open for business. We have a large selection to meet your wants and needs. Some of the items we currently carry are a variety of corded and cordless phones, different brands of tablets such as Kindle Fires and Apple iPads and all the accessories for them, Telekin computers, Epson and HP printers and ink cartridges, Apple iPods and accessories, office supplies, wireless keyboards and mice, cellular phones and accessories, different types of media storage, cameras, headphones, power strips and surge protectors, and much, much more. You can also get your very own Valley swag. Our prices are reasonable and comparable to any other retail store. If there is something that you want or need that we do not currently carry, please let us know so that we can check into it for you. We accept all major credit cards, cash or check. Please feel free to stop by our office and check out our new and improved store for all of your technology and day-to-day business needs.
This will be your finished product. On this particular quilt, I have used different widths for each row, but most of the time I use the same width for the quilts. And if the wider the width that you use, the quicker you will get done with your quilt. So it's just a personal preference. Some of the products you can make is like a pillow, dog pillow, a recliner throw, a twin quilt, a queen quilt, a king. Or you can make up something else that you want to make. Now, after we have cut out our strips, we've made our rows, we put our rows together to make a quilt top. The finishing thing is to put it all together. With the blue jean quilt, you do not have to put a batting inside, but you do need a backing on it. So then you can pick out a backing material. So for this particular one, I am going to use this striped fabric. And that'll make a colorful backing for that quilt. And then we are done. So thank you for joining us today at Stitch Crazy. I hope you've enjoyed our show. If you have any ideas or you would like to be a guest or host a show, call Valley Telco at 437-2615 to make arrangements. Have a great day of sewing.